Good morning, Transpac race fans. This is Dobbs Davis from Seahorse Magazine giving you the July 25th daily analysis report of the 48th Biennial Transpac. We're opening with the tracker view now, not broadened out to the whole North Pacific, but just on our final approach area into the Hawaii. So as you can see, the track's all looking more linear than we've seen in the past. That means everybody's got wind, which is good news. Some of the curvilinear nature of the tracks here show gradual lifts. So if you see this curve, for example, right here, this sets of curves showing gradually arcing up towards the west from southwest. It's just because the breeze has shifted aft, and they're on starboard jibe and setting up for when their final approach might be to jibe into the islands. In the background, you can hear radio traffic. We're here live in Honolulu, and the operations are talking in the next finisher, which I'll get to in a moment. But the overall view here is of the entire fleet. We do have some finishers that are coming in. They've arrived last night, and of course the big news is Celerity finishing yesterday and maintaining the overall corrected time lead in ORR scoring for the race. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's just look at the big picture. Generally, the breeze out there has been good. We've had a few interesting reports in the position reports this morning. Let's see, Destroyer, which is these guys here, TP52, they reported 20 knots of wind, broke 3 spin sheets and 2 tack lines in the last 24 hours. So it's windy enough to be breaking gear even on a well-prepared TP52. Let's see, Transformer, who is over here, they're one of the Division 8 boats that started Monday last week and are going along strong, a Beneteau 523. They say widely scattered squalls, very gusty conditions under squalls. 16 to 26 knots. So variable conditions on these final approaches. This is very typical of Hawaii and trade wind sailing. Zephyrus reports all as well. Chim Chim, which is this gunboat down here, they took a kind of a southerly track compared to their competitors up here to the north, Fado and Extreme H2O, but Chim Chim had a good story. They said velocity 12 to 14 knots, which I think is probably their boat speeds, at 10.8 knots shown on the tracker here. That's not very fast, but again, we've seen that throughout this race, the southerly tracks have not been fast. Anyways, 12 to 14 knots. After nearly a week of hard and almost continuous service, we blew up our A2 spinnaker coming off the back of a wave. The crew's spirits were lifted, however, by the birthday of our youngest member. Rest in peace, A2. Happy 14th, Hilton. So there's some life on board from the gunboat 62 Chim Chim. Let's see. Another boat out here has an interesting report. Indium says that they had 12 knots of wind at 060. Squall chasing, rediscovered Gin, morale restored. Up to 26 knots of wind overnight, made fast progress almost in the right direction. So they obviously having a good time on Indium. Varuna reports good conditions. Varuna, let's see. Varuna is leading their division, I believe. Let's see, Hamashi there. Oh, they've taken the lead back in Division 4. Varuna is a Division 3 boat, sorry. Where's Varuna? Second wind. Anyway, I'll find them in a moment. Sorry about that. But Varuna is, I believe, leading their division. Schooner Martha, they were one of the Monday starters. They're down here, not going very fast. Perhaps that's between squalls, but they had an interesting story. A few squalls, mostly rain, up to 27 knots in front of them. Very consistent, fast sailing. Match racing Hamashi at a few hundred yards at a time. Very different design and sailing concepts between the boats is very evident in breezy reaching conditions. The reason I bring that up is because Hamashi, as you can see on the tracker, is way back here, Martha way down here. It's unlikely the boat they saw was Hamashi, but I thought I'd use this little slider tool to sort of analyze that and go backwards a bit. So let's keep our eye here on the icon for Martha and just slide it back. And in so doing, looking down here, remember Hamashi's way up here somewhere, so I don't think it's Hamashi, but when you slide it forward, you can see that Martha does get into a group of other boats here. And I think what they were probably seeing was maybe Alpha Puppy, a 1 Design 35. Certainly smaller, shorter than a J125, but it is fractional rigged. Perhaps they were watching them and were alongside them for a little while. Sleeper, Jeannot, SO44, and Andiamo J46. You certainly wouldn't mistake them for a fractional rig race boat like a 1D35 or a J125. But again, I think the folks on Martha, in being around that crowd, maybe seeing these boats in close proximity, may have made that mistake. And I think it brings up the point that as in this stage of the race, as everybody converges, you've been at sea for over a week. You haven't seen much other than sky and sea and waves and some sea life, and maybe even a little bit of trash. So seeing other boats on the horizon is really exciting, and I know that from being on board, it usually prompts a lot of inquiry, and you get the binoculars out and you try to see who it is, and if you do have electronic capability, perhaps you can use the tracker to speculate. But that misidentification by Martha is sort of an example of what happens where you see other boats and you really get excited to know who they are and how you're doing. Just a rundown then of our leaders. So Bolt at TP52 is now leading Division 2. Now they're in very close proximity with a whole bunch of other boats here, including some sleds. Grand Illusion here is doing quite well in overall corrected time. In the standings, they're sitting in 4th according to the tracker and lying in 1st in Division 3 in the sleds. Let's see, where are they? Yeah, they're right next to Pyewacket. Pyewacket had that crown for a while, so I suspect that these boats will be really fighting very hard in the next day or so as they make their final approach into the islands. They're 500 miles out on the tracker, but as we know, this is a 6-hour delay, so you can subtract 50 to 80 miles off of that at these speeds. And certainly 14.8 knots, Pyewacket's going fast, so these guys are going to be really racing hard the next day. Hamashi, as we said, has taken the lead back from Resolute, which was another J125, but double-handed. They held the lead for a while. Now it's back to Hamashi, and one of the reasons is probably, let's see, where's my tab here? On the Facebook post, we had Resolute telling a, a story of what life is like on board on a double-hander. 25 knots of wind. With the two of them on board, they're really not getting much sleep. They did a big wipeout, and let's see where we are. Big crash roundup, 2.5A kite up, and a small spinnaker staysail. Here's the tricky part. We have a single tack line with a marlin breaker. As you try to round back down from our scenic tour into the wind, the Tylaska shackle on the kite sheet opens up, so the kite is flying from the halyard and the tack alone. To make matters worse, the upper third of the kite is wrapped on itself. Okay, kids, how in God's name do we solve this problem unscathed and then get back sailing again? The first person who responds correctly wins a Resolute long sleeve crew sun shirt as a prize. Good luck, and prayer does not count, although I was praying at the time. So Tim Fuller sharing some eloquence with us in his story. Perhaps that roundup was not the only one, and that sort of thing may have cost them the lead. Hamashi is a full crew boat, very well sailed, and maybe it's that sort of thing that will make the difference here and who does well coming into the final approach. But anyway, we wish Tim and his team good luck out there on Resolute. Looking here, H2O, Extreme H2O, they've held the lead the last couple of days in the multi-hulls. Fado up here. I don't know exactly what the time difference is for them to try to make that up, but certainly fairly considerable distance here. Fado could still get in there. They are owed time by Extreme H2O, so we'll see on their final approach. Transformer we talked about. Rio 100. Now let's go over to the tracker that is on the 100-mile radius. This is live and gets updated quickly through the tracking system. Rio here coming in. They're inside 100 miles. Their expected time to finish is around 1400 Hawaii time today. So that's that will be 1700 Pacific time. And by calculations that I have, it's certainly not official, but 1700 would put them at 7 days, 4 hours, which is not enough to break a barn door trophy record. Now they will likely win the barn door trophy for this race. I don't see any other fixed keel boats that don't have any movable ballast or any of those systems to qualify for barn door. So these guys are the fastest in that category amongst the monohulls. But they, I don't think, can get to Bellamente's record from the 2011 race of 6 days, 19 hours, 44 minutes, and 28 seconds. According to my calculations, they'd have 5 hours to make up, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it. So this is another artifact of the unusual character of this race, being light air the first few days. Has deprived a 100-footer from beating the best elapsed time by a 74-footer, Bellamente, in the 2011 race. Now, that same boat, Bellamente, is renamed Wizard. They're out on the course now, and they, of course, won't match that time either. So, anyway, just a little historical context there. Now, next boat coming in will be Precepts 2, Beneteau First 40. We've gotten a 25-mile report from them. They're expected here basically in about an hour or so. Now, I want to switch over here to Webcam. On the website, you can click on, this is the Transpac homepage. You can get onto these webcams, and here it is here. Look at that. Outrigger canoe going past, a couple of them. But that's live webcam from Diamond Head. That's Diamond Head buoy there, and the finish line extends on a transit right off of our view here. So those that are interested can look at this and see live Precepts 2 coming across the finish line sometime within the next hour. But what a great view here. Southerly surf, outrigger canoes coming out on their Saturday paddles. They typically have competitions here on this weekend out between Oahu and Molokai. So great view there. Other views that we have on the webcams are like this one. This is the Alawai cam set up on the top of Hawaii Yacht Club. You can see the surf breaking here around Ala Moana Park, and that's the channel coming into the harbor. And then this one from where we are here at the Modern Hotel up on the top, also overlooking Alawai Yacht Harbor. Now, this view right here where the cursor is the shack. This is the temporary headquarters of Transpac Yacht Club. All the operational facilities are in here, and the row of slips that you see out here on the pier are the so-called Transpac row. So as boats come in and finish, they will be parked here. Now, coming in last night was Wild Oats and Ragamuffin. They do not park here, and I don't think Rio will likely park here either, simply because the depth coming into the Alawai Harbor is not sufficient to accommodate the really deep draft boats. So they'll be going around further to the west toward Honolulu and another harbor there. But everybody else will end up parking along this row, and over the next day or so, it'll populate with finishers and really be a great time. This tent over here is where the parties, the post parties are held, and that's always a great time for all the finishers. Looking lastly at weather, this is our Wonder map that we have, GFS model for this morning, Saturday. And we warned yesterday about these light air patches that are lurking out here to interrupt some of the trade winds. This is one of the reasons that coming into Oahu here, most of the boats are taking this kind of northerly approach, a few coming through to the south. I don't think this feature over here will be much of a factor. I think nearly everybody's ahead of that. So we expect pretty good trade wind conditions coming in. Now, the forecast for today, yesterday, here locally was something unusual. They said icky, which simply meant that the trade winds were going to be suppressed by some feature. Maybe it was this thing, to where it would be hot and humid without a lot of wind. Looking out the window here, there is some wind, and you saw out on the live webcam off Diamond Head, there's a little bit of wind. It's not as windy as yesterday, so I don't think we're going to see the same high speeds on the final approach for those getting in today, but it will be supported, I think, coming back a little bit more in the future. If we look forward here, this is for Sunday morning, tomorrow. Light here and around the islands for sure, but certainly on the approach coming in, it's a pretty good breeze. Notice that southerly shift, though. That's kind of interesting. So those coming in from the north could be helped out by a bit of a header in the breeze, allowing them to come in on their final approach faster. Those coming in from the south, of course, getting lifted. We'll have to figure out how to jibe in. So very interesting conditions indeed here on final approach. Celerity still leading in overall corrected time, but that could change with some of the sleds coming in. Grand Illusion, for example, is quite well sailed. They've won it twice in overall, so we'll keep an eye on all of them. So that's my 25 July report for the Transpac here in the 48th edition. I'm Dobbs Davis for Seahorse Magazine. I wish everybody a great day, and we'll hope to see you again tomorrow.